Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a really turbulent part of the world, the Middle East. Our focus, it's on a reported Israeli plan, potentially to strike Iranian nuclear facilities, and also a recent Houthi missile attack.
Right, and these events, they're not isolated incidents. The sources, the New York Times, the Jerusalem Post, reported via Eurasian Times, they show how interconnected everything is.
Exactly. It's like pieces of a really complex puzzle.
Precisely. And for you, our listener, especially if you're preparing for, say, the UPSC exams, getting the context here is crucial.
Absolutely. Understanding the motivations, the implications.
Yeah, it gives you a lens for international relations, security studies, all those intricate regional dynamics. So our mission today really is to break these things down, provide that background.
Okay, let's dive straight in then. This reported Israeli plan to bomb Iran. It sounds pretty concrete for a while there, considered for May 2025 under Trump.
That's what the reports suggest, yeah. The core idea being an Israeli strike, maybe with some U.S. help, on Iranian nuclear sites.
And what's fascinating is the debate inside the U.S. at the time. The report mentions quite a split, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. A real divergence in thinking. You had figures like General Kurilla at CNTCOM. He reportedly favored the military option.
Based on what? Iran being weak.
That seems to be part of the thinking, yes. An assessment of Iran's, military and economic vulnerabilities may be creating a window, like a strike now kind of moment.
Now or never feel. But there was pushback.
A lot of pushback. Another group was really worried about it sparking a much bigger regional conflict. They were pushing hard for diplomacy instead.
And diplomacy won out. For the moment, anyway.
It seems so. President Trump's preference, according to the reports, was leaning towards trying to get a deal done first. That apparently tipped the scales.
So what was Israel's thinking then? Why push so hard for a strike, reportedly? What were they hoping to achieve?
Well, the main goal, it seems, was pretty clear. Stop Iran's nuclear program in its tracks. Or at least set it back significantly, maybe by a year or more.
Okay. And the initial plan involved U.S. planes. Commandos.
That was apparently the initial discussion, yeah. U.S. air power, special ops targeting those underground facilities. But it seems they hit logistical snags.
Readiness issues. Timing.
Exactly. The report suggests the Israeli military told the U.S. that the original plan just wasn't feasible by the October timeframe they were looking at.
So they shifted gears.
Right. To a revised plan, more focused on let's say, a larger Israeli air operation, but one that still really needed U.S. support.
Like refueling. Intelligence.
Absolutely critical elements. Refueling, intelligence sharing. And you saw that military buildup in the region around then, right? Aircraft carriers, missile defense systems.
Yeah, that suggested something was potentially brewing.
It certainly pointed to heightened readiness, let's put it that way.
Like,
and Netanyahu was, according to these reports, actively trying to persuade Trump to okay this.
interesting that Trump didn't just shut it down completely. More like, let's try diplomacy first, But
if that fails, Iran can't get a nuclear weapon. That was the message. So not a rejection, more like a strategic pause. It kept the military option on the table, just deferred.
Which makes the leak of this whole reported plan even more significant.
Oh, hugely significant. The reaction in Israel was intense. One senior official apparently called it one of the most dangerous leaks ever.
Wow. And there was criticism aimed at Netanyahu himself.
There was. Some reportedly suggested, maybe he leaked it himself to kind of deflect blame for not taking action earlier. Who knows the real story there? But it caused a stir.
It definitely highlights the internal pressure cooker in Israel over Iran's nuclear program.
No doubt. And it's interesting, while the NYT focused on the U.S. hesitation and the plan being deferred, some Israeli media report that the IDF felt pretty confident they could do it, even alone.
Right. And wasn't Avigdor Lieberman, the former defense minister, referencing past strikes?
Yeah.
Syria, Iraq?
He was sort of invoking those precedents, suggesting Israel has the capability and the will based on history, which actually brings us neatly to those past operations.
Good point. Let's look at those. Starting with Syria, 2007. Operation Outside the Box. What can we learn from that, especially thinking about, say, UPSC prep?
Well, for understanding strategic decision-making, the intelligence side is key here. Israel apparently spent years gathering intel on foreign experts helping Syria with nuclear stuff.
So this wasn't a sudden discovery.
Not at all. By 2006, they felt they had solid evidence of a secret reactor being built. These suspicious buildings near Deir ez-Zor were the big clue.
And the crucial thing became the timing, stopping it before it went hot.
Precisely. before they loaded the nuclear fuel, because once that happened, any strike becomes infinitely riskier. Think radiological fallout, regional escalation.
Much higher stakes.
Exactly. So the operation itself, September 5th, 6th, 2007, was a night strike. F-16s, F-15s, using ground-penetrating bombs to make sure they got the reactor buried inside.
And Syria's reaction.
They initially claimed it was just, an unused military building under construction, standard denial.
But that didn't hold up.
Nope. Satellite images later clearly showed the destruction. Israel kept quiet officially for years, but eventually people like Netanyahu publicly confirmed it, framing it as preventing a nuclear Syria.
And the Air Force commander at the time posed that chilling question, right? What if they hadn't struck?
Yeah, what would the region look like today if Syria had gotten nuclear weapons? It really underscores that preemptive thinking in Israeli strategy.
Okay, now let's rewind further. Iraq, 1981. The Ozark reactor strike. Operation Opera. Similar motivations.
Very similar. Again, it was driven by what Israel saw as an absolutely unacceptable existential threat. Saddam Hussein getting the bomb.
In immediate danger in their eyes.
Absolutely. And like the Syria strike, it was a surprise air attack. F-16s and F-15s again, flying a really long way, total radio silence to maintain surprise. The objective was simple: destroy that reactor near Baghdad.
So both cases show a pattern. Preemptive action against perceived nuclear threats.
It seems to be a consistent element of their doctrine, yes. When they believe a threat is imminent and existential, they've shown a willingness to act unilaterally.
Okay, now let's fast forward again to the present, or very recent past. This Houthi missile attack near Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. How does that piece fit?
Well, it might seem geographically separate from the Iran nuclear issue, but it's actually a really important piece of the bigger picture.
Because of the Iran-Houthi link.
Exactly. It shows the broader instability and how conflicts are linked. Iran's support for the Houthis is well documented. So when the Houthis fire missiles towards Tel Aviv, it's seen in Israel through that lens.
And Netanyahu's response was pretty strong.
Very strong. Pledging multiple retaliatory strikes, talking about a sustained campaign, there will be bangs. It has to be seen in that context of proxies.
Proxies extending the battlefield.
Precisely. These groups can project power far away, and it just adds another layer of complexity to Israel's security challenges. For UPSC students, understanding proxy warfare is, well, it's essential for grasping modern conflict dynamics.
So let's try and pull these threads together. We have the reported Israeli plan against Iran, these historical strikes, and now these proxy actions, like the Houthi attack. What's the big takeaway here?
The big takeaway is, I think, the sheer volatility. You've got Iran's nuclear ambitions, Israel's preemptive doctrine, and these capable proxy groups all interacting.
It's a dangerous mix.
Extremely. Everyone's making complex calculations, weighing the risks of action versus inaction, and miscalculation is a huge danger. The potential for things to escalate into a wider war is, unfortunately, very real.
And the U.S. role remains central, doesn't it? Influencing Israel's choices.
Absolutely critical. U.S. policy, U.S. support, U.S. diplomatic efforts, they heavily shape the environment and Israel's options. For anyone analyzing foreign policy, that U.S.-Israel dynamic, especially when facing perceived existential threats, is a major case study.
So summing up, we've looked at this reported, potentially deferred Israeli plan targeting Iran's nuclear program. We've seen how it echoes past preemptive strikes on Syria and Iraq.
Right.
And we've connected it to the current instability involving actors like the Houthis, who complicate the picture, often seen as acting with Iranian backing. It paints a picture of a region constantly on edge.
That's a good way to put it, on edge. And as you, our listener, especially those thinking about the UPSC exams, reflect on this, maybe consider this. How much do these historical precedents actually shape today's decisions in the Middle East?
That's a deep question. Does history repeat or just rhyme?
And how does the rise of these non-state actors, these proxies backed by regional powers, change the game compared to traditional state-on-state conflict? Thinking about these things is vital for IR, for security studies, relevant for both mains and maybe even prelims questions.
Really crucial points to mull over. If you found this deep dive useful and want more analysis like this, please do like, subscribe, maybe leave us a comment if you have more questions.
We'd love to hear them.
And remember, our discussion today was based on reporting from the New York Times and the Jerusalem Post, as relayed by Eurasian Times. Definitely worth looking into their original reports for more detail.